pocket kings. Let's go. Under the gun raises to 20. This is perfect. What is this? Middle position is now cutting out chips to raise here. Now this is my time to shine. The poker gods have blessed me with this opportunity and rewarded me for being patient. In this session, we visit lucky chances. I want you guys to know one thing, and that is I don't cherry pick the sessions I want to vlog. I record every session that I can, and it will become a vlog if I have enough footage. Some sessions, I won't have enough hands, so I might not create a video out of it, but if I can, I will. This session happens to be one of those videos that we don't get into a lot of big hands, but I will be trying to dive deeper into my thought process and hand analysis so you guys can kind of get a feel for exactly what I'm thinking when I get involved in hands. Let's hit the felt. This video was created for entertainment purposes only. By no means am I a professional poker player. The following video is not intended to teach nor train, but rather to provide a look into my journey. Please gamble at your own risk. Of course, we have the most fitting hand for this first hand of the session. I pick up King 9 of clubs, better known on this channel as the intro. There are a few folds and the hijack raises to 15. Since I have position on this guy, I make the call. You definitely can just fold in the spot, and actually, it's probably recommended to do so, but I'm in the cutoff and it is my favorite hand. The button calls and the big blind comes along as well, so we have four-way action and the flop is Queen Jack 6 with a couple of clubs. It's a pretty good flop since I picked up a king high flush draw, a gut shot, and one over. It gets checked to me, and with only one person behind me and having multiple possibilities with this hand, I gotta bet this. Since the hijack was the pre-flop raiser, I'm going to assume that he doesn't have a good hand here. I think he would bet out all top pairs and flush or straight draws, so I'm not worried about him, but the button and big blind could have a hand. So let's find out. I fire out 30, and I only thin the field by 1 as the button folds, and the big blind and pre-flop raiser both make the call. I'm feeling super comfortable at the moment as I just implemented a limit hold and play. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's when you either bet or raise in position on the flop with the intention of getting a free river card, since the majority of the time your opponents will check to you on the turn since you were the aggressor on the previous street. I used to use this all the time when I was playing 3-6, 6-12, and even 8-16 fixed limit hold'em back in the day. Anyways, after the two guys call, we go to a turn card, which is the 9 of diamonds. We pick up a pair, but this card most likely helped them more than it helps us. They both check again, and now our plan worked as we can get a free river card for a very low price of $30 on the flop. I check back, and the river is the 5 of diamonds. A complete brick for us. I'm hoping that it gets checked around one more time. But even then we don't really have much showdown value, so it probably won't make a difference. The big blind checks, and the hijack doesn't want this to get to showdown as he bets out 50. Even though I don't think he has much, I don't have a strong enough hand to call, especially with one person behind me, so I make the fold, hoping that I get to see the hijack's hand, but the big blind folds right behind me. I feel that he got away with one. I'm definitely keeping notes on him for the rest of the session. This next hand we get involved with will be the mystery hand. We will be going over this hand's progressions from pre-flop, flop, turn, and river while keeping my hand concealed. You take a guess at what we have and enter it in the comments below, and I will revisit this hand later in the video and reveal what I have. Let's see if you can put me on a hand. I am in the big blind, and when it gets folded to under the gun +1, he raises to 20. The player next to him calls, and it gets folded around to me, and I make the call. So we're going 3 ways to the flop, which comes down ace, king, 8 with 2 spades. I check, and the pre-flop raiser bets 35. Under the gun +1 folds, and I make the call. The turn card is the 6 of diamonds. I check, and +2 checks back. The river is the 5 of spades. I bet 50, and he thinks for a bit, but ends up putting in the fold. I know this hand isn't super exciting, there's no like bells and whistles, but there are a few things in this hand that narrow down the possibilities here. So what do I have? A, Queen Jack of spades. B, pocket 8s. C, ace 6 off. Or D, Queen Jack off for the complete bluff. Place your guesses in the comments below and we will see if you're right later on in the video. So not a lot of premium hands in this session, as it starts to get a little frustrating, but we do get pocket queens in the cutoff. Middle position raises to 10. It's such a small raise, but maybe just to sweeten up the pot and get a cheap flop. So when it gets folded to me, I don't want any of that happening, so I 3-bet to 45. I want to isolate middle position and go heads up with queens. A few folds, and once it gets to the small blind, he decides he wants to tango with us, so he puts in the call. This is already kind of setting off alarm bells in my head. If he does have a big hand, why is he just flatting out of position? This seems very weird to me, but either way, it gets folded back to middle position and he places the call. So we're going 3 ways to the flop. There's a 3, there's a 5, there's a deuce. 2 of them are diamonds. This is definitely not the flop we are looking for. We do have an overpair, but they know this flop didn't hit us. So they have range advantage right now. They both check to me, and I think if this was heads up, then I might put in a bet here. But with it being multi-way and the small blind playing this hand weird, I'm going to check back in pot control. Most likely I still have the best hand, but I probably wouldn't be able to get 3 streets of value, even if I do. So I check back, and we go to a turn, which brings the 4 of diamonds. They both check to me again, and even though this card brings in a plethora of hands that I cannot beat, they did check twice. This gives me the green light, and now I want to protect against somebody having a big diamond since I unblock diamonds. Also, my perceived range has a lot of ace-x holdings, and I can rep the best hand here. I place a bet of 45. The small blind folds, and now the opponent in middle position check raises me to 145. I just can't continue with this hand any longer, so I put in the fold, but I would like to know, would you guys have bet the flop, or maybe just check back the turn instead of repping a hand? I don't know, I'm trying to figure out the best line here. We pick up ace-8 of diamonds in middle position. Under the gun +1 limps, and we overlimp. It gets folded to the big blind, and he wants to play for a bigger pot. He says $30. +1 makes the call, and with position and closing the action, of course, I call as well. The flop is an interesting one. It is ace-5-5 rainbow. The reason it's interesting is that this flop doesn't really allow someone to have a draw here. Either you have it or you don't. Sure, someone can have 4-3 or 3 deuce, but the likelihood is super low in this raise pot with the type of action that happened pre-flop. The pre-flop raiser checks, and now the original limper bets out 70. This is a huge bet relative to the size of the pot, and on such a static flop, it raises eyebrows because if he had a great hand, why would he polarize his bet like that multi-way? With all this said, I want to see another card. I make the call, and the big blind folds his hand. By the way, if you don't know what a static flop or a board is, it's basically a flop where the best hand is probably going to stay that way. Conversely, a dynamic flop would be a flop where hand equities are most likely going to change as the hand progresses through the turn and the river. Let's get back to the hand. The turn is the 5 of hearts. This card changes nothing. And now I want to see what he does. He ends up checking here, and I just don't know what to think of this anymore. Maybe he was trying to buy the pot with, I don't know, a middle pocket pair, since the pre-flop raiser basically says, I don't have an ace. And now he wanted to test if I did. I'm still not sure yet, so I check behind for mostly pot control. The river is the 7 of diamonds. He checks for the second time in a row, and now I'm a firm believer that he has a worse hand than me, but still a value hand to call off, like maybe pocket 8s through 10s. He probably won't call a huge bet, so I just bet 75. He basically snap calls me, and I show my hand, and he shows his. He tables ace queen of hearts. Of course we chopped this pot, but I didn't think he was that strong. I guess he was trying to set the bear trap for me. The 5 saved me big time. Now I look down at JT off, aka Timberlake. You can probably understand why I call it Timberlake. I'm in middle position in a straddle pot. It folds to me, and I raise to 25. I get 2 callers behind me, and the straddler calls as well. So we are going 4 ways to the flop of ace, king, queen with 2 hearts. Let's go. We have been whiffing a bunch of flops, calling raises, c-betting, and just not hitting much this whole session. So finally, the poker gods want to give us a break. I flop the absolute nuts without blocking any pairs, and with 3 other people in this pot, we're going to see some action. There are 3 Broadway cards and a heart draw. How could we not? I'm looking at my chips and I see we are about 400 effective. I'm already thinking of ways to get full value and stacks in, maybe even by the turn. The straddler checks, and now let's build a pot. I place a bet of 75, and you gotta be kidding me. Everybody folds. How can nobody have a piece of this or even a draw? This is just ridiculous. Maybe I should have checked the flop. I don't know. What do you guys think? As we find ourselves folding a bunch of hands, if you are enjoying this video, please hit that like button. And if you want to come along for the ride on my poker journey, then make sure to hit subscribe and turn on those notifications so you can get the latest and greatest straight hot off the press. In this next hand, we pick up ace-jack offsuit in the cutoff. Under the gun +1 raises to 30. There's a caller in between us, and I make the call as well. Everybody else behind me folds. We are going to see a flop three ways, which comes ace, king, 3. There are no front door flushes possible. We hit top pair with a decent kicker, and it gets checked to us. This is a pretty good spot, as most likely +1 would bet his ace if he had one, and the same goes for the opponent in between us. With this new information, I feel confident in betting my hand for value, so I fire out 50. Only the pre-flop raiser calls, and I'm thinking he has some sort of hand like maybe queen 10, queen jack, possibly even a king here, and wants to see if he can hit a second pair on the turn. One thing to note if you are ever in this situation is that if this person is a solid reg, then you have to be careful that he is just pot controlling on the flop and possibly has ace queen, since that would most likely be the best hand here, as he did not get 3-bet pre-flop, which rules out ace king for both of his opponents. We go heads up to a turn, which is the perfect card for us. It is the jack of diamonds. We hit 2 pair, and really the only hand that we're scared of now is queen 10, since we do block a set of jacks. The pre-flop raiser checks one more time, and now I want to size up because it is likely that he has a pair with a gut shot. I need to charge him for whatever draw he has and get some value out of this big hand. He has about 335 in his stack, and I'm trying to find a way to get all the chips in the middle by the river, so I cut out 23 $5 chips and place them in front of me. He thinks about it for a bit and unfortunately throws his cards away. This is kind of indicative of the session that we're having, not getting paid on our big hands and losing a lot of small to medium-sized pots. Like Drake says, back to back. We look at ace-jack offsuit again, this time under the gun, and we raise to 15. There are 2 callers behind me, and it folds to the big blind, and he makes the call as well. We are going 4 ways to the flop, which comes down ace, 5, deuce, rainbow. Big blind checks, and with 2 people behind me, I think this is a spot where we have to bet to thin the field and kind of keep the lead. This hand will be tough to get value out of if we check here. One of the limpers in position, call, and the other 2 opponents fold. Now we're in a good spot as we go heads up to the turn, and the turn is a great card. It is the queen of clubs. It might not seem like it's a good card, but when you think about it, the opponent probably doesn't have ace king since there was no 3-bet pre-flop, and now it's less likely that he has ace queen. And if he does have ace queen, well, then he had us beat already, so it didn't really change much, and we'll probably see him raise or bet pretty big on the turn if he does have that hand. Feeling pretty confident about my hand, I bet out 70. I think he has a lot of ace 3s, ace 5s, ace 10s, and possibly middling aces that are suited here. It's going to be hard to get 3 streets if he does hold those hands, so I want to kind of charge him for all of his gut shots and backdoor club draws if he has any. He ends up making the call, and here we go. Let's see a river. The river is the 10 of diamonds. Now this is a pretty bad card since it smashes his pre-flop calling range, and it would make sense for him calling 2 streets. So I check to him, getting prepared to think about calling a huge bet on the river. I'm mentally going through all the bet sizes and figuring out if I'm going to call or not. Luckily for me, I don't need to think any longer as he checks behind. I table my hand, and he taps the table and folds his hand. It feels like ages since we won a pot on Showdown. It seems like I need to change the vibes or mix it up some way to get better cards or just better situations. So I seat change, and the first hand that I pick up is pocket kings. Let's go. Finally, I get a premium hand. I give off a physical tell and straighten my back and sit up in my seat. And at this point, I don't really care since it's been so long since I've seen, cards like this. And what do you know? Under the gun raises to 20. This is perfect. He's supposed to have a narrow and strong range of hands here. Oh, what is this? Middle position is now cutting out chips to raise here. Oh, this is wonderful. He ends up making the raise to 60 all day. Middle position has about 400 behind. Under the gun has about 700. Now this is my time to shine. The poker gods have blessed me with this opportunity and rewarded me for being patient and not tilting off during the session. I gather some chips and 4-bet to 140. Even if under the gun folds, I'm okay playing for stacks against middle position. And that's exactly what happens. Under the gun does fold. I prepare for the good old 5-bet shove or maybe even just a flat. I don't think I need to tell you guys what happens next. You already know. Middle position folds his cards and now I just shake my head and take the $80 and put it in my stack. I guess I should be thankful that we didn't go to a flop and maybe an ace pops and I double up the guy. I don't know. But it's hard to think that way when the session has been beating you up. Should I have just flatted the 60 since the 4-bet seems very strong? What do you think? All right, we shake that one off and now we are 5-handed and get queen jack of hearts under the gun. We raise to 15. There's a short stack with about 100 total and he bets 45. Everybody folds and I'm just looking to see a flop here. I make the call and the flop is queen 7 deuce, all spades. I check and he checks back. Maybe he has a hand like ace king or pocket jacks. The turn is the 6 of diamonds and now it's time for me to value bet against hands that I'm ahead of. So I go all in for his last 55 and he snap calls. Of course he does. Well, he just tables his hand and shows ace king of spades. So we were right, he had ace king, but didn't think he had spades. Oh well, it's just the nuts, no biggie. I don't even know what the river card is. I'm drawing dead. GG. Okay, time for the mystery hand reveal. Let's recap the hand real quick. I am in the big blind when it gets folded to under the gun +1 and he raises to 20. The player next to him calls and it gets folded around to me and I make the call. 3 ways to the flop, which comes down ace, king, 8, 2 spades. I check and the PFR bets 35. +1 folds and I make the call. The turn card is the 6 of diamonds. I check and the PFR checks back. The river is the 5 of spades. I bet 50 and he thinks for a bit but ends up putting in the fold. So what do I have? Queen jack of spades, pocket 8s, ace 6 off, or queen jack off. The correct answer is A. With pocket 8s, I probably would have check raised the flop or led on the turn with a sizable bet since I don't want to miss value and there is a flush draw there. With ace 6 off, well, I'm probably not defending, in the big blind with that hand in the first place. And with queen jack off, if I were to make a bluff in this spot, it would most likely be a polarized bet of maybe 1.5x pot, to make it hard for the opponent to just call off with one pair here unless he has a super read on me. Well, I know this is not the outcome that we all want, but, we kind of have to deal with the highs and lows in poker. And if we're losing, we're losing. We just got to be able to mitigate those losses, make sure that our mental is good, and kind of move on. Go to the next session with a clean slate and play the next session like nothing even happened the session before. Once again, I appreciate you guys sticking to the end. I hope to see you on the next one. And hopefully on the next one, we're not ducking it. We're running like Usain Bolt. Peace.